welcome back to Talking with SOT. We're changing it up a little bit for season 2 now, Harnek.
Season 2.
Do you believe that?
Yeah, second season.
I don't know. I'm just making season 2. We only had 10 episodes.
We just decided
for
this is season 2.
This is. And we have a couple special guests. This is the last day on campus before, I guess, they go off and hopefully write a big test soon. So we have some level 3 students. I just had them. They're from my class or one of my classes. And we have Matt Demong.
How's it going?
And Joey, I don't know how to say
Fares.
it. Fares.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I would say it for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
I get fares a lot, like bus fares and things like that.
Well, that's how it's spelled.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Supposedly there was supposed to be an accent once upon a time, but
you
it got
You
lost.
should bring it back.
Should I bring it back?
Yeah,
I
you should
think
bring
so,
it back
for
and
sure.
insist on it. Very heavily.
Go through all that red tape of
Your-
all my documents
your
for one
autograph?
line.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be
With my
perfect.
autograph, for sure. I'm going to be signing a lot of autographs for sure, yeah. In this trade. Everybody.
Especially after this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. You're
I mean,
stopped in the parking lot.
We're starting at the bottom, right?
Starting
Did
at
we
the
just say that?
That doesn't get lower than this.
Rock bottom.
I'd say, I usually try to start at the top and just work my way down.
Yeah. Here we can only go up, right? So.
Just like all my test scores throughout the semester.
Went up?
Your CFQ preps. Just going tanking down.
Tanking.
So they're talking about the CFQ prep course, and we just finished that today, which is kind of a like end of the semester, kind of roll through some tests and see how you do, and how was the scores overall? What do you think? How do you feel going into the CFQ?
I feel pretty good.
Yeah?
I think I'll need to like brush up on some of the just the memorization type things.
Yeah.
Fire extinguishers, things like that. The actual like figuring out questions, I feel pretty okay with them, honestly. I have some experience. Some of the stuff though, like I don't really work on like the domestic cars and stuff. It's just kind of out of my wheelhouse. So I'll overthink some questions sometimes and I'll kind of shoot myself in the foot there.
So what kind of vehicles are you working on, just so we can judge you?
Judge me accurately accordingly. I typically work on BMWs, kind of the older ones. I like a lot of the classics, 80s,
Yeah.
90s, early 2000s.
Cool.
There's kind of a following around there, and I've kind of tapped into that market.
So you like getting beat up, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, I hate myself. So.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a bit because he's got a cool spot where he's working, and I want to ask him a few questions. But yeah, what did you feel like for the week? Are you ready for this test?
Yeah, honestly, I did pretty well on the practice exams, like well enough to pass CFQ. But it's one of those things where like I thought that it was still very helpful to like go through it and do the multiple tests, and because it gave me pointers about like where I would still need to brush up and things I still need to learn.
Yeah.
Because I found there were some sections, because the CFQ is all sectioned off, where like, there might be 20 questions and I got 18 of them right. And then there'd be other sections where there was 10 questions and I got 2 of them right. So it's kind of helpful to see like, it's in this area is an area where, like I don't really know and my knowledge is deficient. But then in these other areas, it's like, okay, like I'm actually doing pretty well and it's pretty strong. And
it's a pretty good gauge, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like set yourself up for how you want to study and
yeah,
where
definitely.
You focus time.
Yeah. And then it was also helpful just kind of seeing like what kinds of questions you might be asked, or like it might ask a question like, what's the cause of something? And in the answer, you have the correct cause, but then also an effect that would occur.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be able to read the question and think to yourself, what is the question asking? Is it asking for what the cause is going to be? Is it asking for what the effect is going to be?
Mm-hmm.
And just being able to like kind of learn that sort of test taking skill.
Yeah. There's
I
that
think is
most
really
right
helpful.
answer kind of that we've been debating a lot this week.
Yeah,
What's
absolutely,
the most
yeah.
correct?
Yeah, and I've also found like being in class and having the discussion, especially with some of those more challenging questions, has actually been really helpful. And I have been learning, and I've been sitting there taking notes. And I know that some instructors had said that they would hope it was all online, which I could see definitely like there would be a certain convenience to that. But I also do want to say that I actually did appreciate being in class.
I can't let you
To go
listen.
over
Like
this.
the boss can't listen to this.
Yeah.
Because I want it online. No, I'm kidding.
Said some instructors so cryptically.
Yes.
Why did you nudge him when you said
I'm not gonna name names, but Mr. Camp.
Yes, I know. It's okay.
I mean, online is more convenient for sure, but I think it depends on kind of. I think we're kind of the same age, right? Like we're a little bit of the older demographic here.
Before you go into that, I will say you guys were one of the most engaging classes for that week.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
Sweet.
I would teach you guys in class consistently. Your class, some other classes, it's like 2 people on the Friday,
Right.
and it's just very not engaged at all, and don't really want to ask questions or no banter. So that's when that online is like, okay, let's get through this, and then it's
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like when it's just like, oh, let's just read all the correct answers. Like, yeah, who cares? But like when everybody's going back and forth, people are talking to one another. We're trying to like understand.
Yeah.
I just thought that was extremely like beneficial.
Valuable.
I feel like it's a bit of an unfortunate mindset to just be like, let's breeze through this. And even though I kind of wanted to today,
Yeah, I
I'm kind
know.
of saying like, let's
I mean,
power through
it's
this.
Friday after.
It's Friday and it's sunny and I need my sunlight, but you know, like to get that kind of conversation going and ask those questions and have debate with your classmates and your teachers, I think it's super important because for me, I learned that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just to kind of like, okay, answer C because of this and just believe it blindly. Well, you might remember that for a day or two, but we're not writing for weeks, maybe months. I don't know, right? So just to kind of think like, I hope I'm on there and be like, oh, well, we talked about this when I disagreed with the guy next to me and we kind of had that discussion, kind of sticks a little bit better for me.
Yeah, I guess that's where that environment is so much better for learning, right? So a lot of my students, I don't teach the CFQ prep, at least not typically, but I have level 3 students and they ask me, sir, is it worth it? Do I have to come to this CFQ prep or is it something I can just skip? And I tell them, look, you're not graded on your CFQ prep, but you know, as much as I try to say it's worth it, I guess I got to ask you guys as actual level 3 students, you know, do you find that, or do you believe there's going to be real value in this?
I'll say I'm split yes and no. I think to some degree, like what we've spoken about, taking up some of the more challenging questions, talking about it, I think that's great. I think I was a little bit disappointed with all of it being like, okay, take a test, take up a test, take a test, take up. It got a little bit repetitive and I lost interest.
Okay.
Which was kind of just like, how many times are you going to do the same thing?
Yeah.
And sometimes it was more engaging than other times. So I think I would have preferred like maybe half of it being like this way and maybe another half being, see, I don't have a better answer. So I'm not saying here like,
You don't have an alternative.
I don't have an alternative.
Right.
So I feel like kind of bad saying, oh, it should be a different way. And I don't have a different way to propose. But I think something maybe a little bit more engaging, or you kind of mentioned maybe go to a lab, maybe talk a little bit more practically, just something to split the day up. Cause like you're there for so long, literally just multiple choice, taking a test and then multiple choice, taking up a test. Oh man.
And there
it can
is,
be a
I guess
drag.
they call it like test fatigue. Like you get
Totally,
tired
sure.
of test after test, right?
Both of you guys said that actually about your final in electrical. I think you both said that like you got through 80% of it and you're like, let's go. And then that last 20%.
Yeah. And that test is
hit a wall.
half as long as the CFQ, but the questions were much more difficult. I haven't written yet, but those questions were hard. Like you really had to use a lot of your bandwidth on every single question.
For sure.
Yeah, by like question like 40, 45, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like maybe, and then just like, oh, I got so much more. And then at some point, you know, because we're timed, I think it was 80 minutes maybe? Was it?
Which
90
exam
minutes?
were you referring to?
Electrical. Whatever. I don't know. I finished it before the
We
time.
had 2 hours to write,
But
if I remember
I
correctly.
thought I was just going to breeze through. I'm like, oh, I'll be done in half the time. And I took like 3/4 of the time, which is kind of unlike me, to take a full amount of time in a test. I usually kind of just finish pretty quickly and get on with my day.
And
But yeah, I
will
was
be
tired.
interested to follow up with you guys as how much time you end up spending on the CFQ.
Yeah.
Because one of the most recent people I talked to who wrote, he said he spent like the full 4 hours.
Wow.
And
I
was
couldn't
like,
imagine.
whoa. Right?
Yeah,
so
30 minutes and I'm
no.
out of there.
C for everything. How fast can I write C?
I remember
125
writing
times?
mine, and it was a long time ago.
yeah.
But I was like an hour max, and I was out. And, and everybody else was like sweating and in there doing it. And I'm like, I think I'm done. Like, should I be done already? Like, felt weird. But that's how I wrote test too. I was quick.
Yeah.
I was like, again, going back to like the CFQ prep. If you are ready for it, you know what I mean, and prepared, then your gut instinct, and that first answer is probably going to be the best one.
Yeah, it speaks towards confidence there. I think. You're working in a shop for how long? You're doing 3 years of school. You're doing all this studying. It's not like you're cramming in a week for the test. Like this is like 3, 4, 5, 10 years sometimes of people's lives for this one test. Like trust your gut, I feel like. And it's a confidence thing.
My wife's a nurse, and that exam is like 8 hours. So I'm happy we just have to do
8
ours. Yeah.
8 hours, 4 hours. I couldn't imagine sitting. And you can't take breaks or use the washroom or
I
anything,
think
right?
I think it's 2 separate tests, so there's a break in between or something like that. But yeah. Okay, so based on the CFQ prep, because of that, you guys are level 3. You're done level 3 now.
Done.
You guys are done.
Official.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Well,
Until we
unless
fail it
I-
a bunch of times and have to come
Unless
back.
it turns out I actually failed.
Yeah.
I can make
Still
that
waiting
happen.
on the grades.
AC sucked, man. Wait, what?
Hey.
Who said
Yeah, I
that?
totally neglected to do my AC
Teacher was
electives.
awful, man.
Yeah, so what was one of the hardest things that you had in your school career here? This is when I teach the CFQ prep on the Monday. I'm like, guys, what was the most challenging subject or the hardest topic to learn, or what do you think that might have been?
401 traffic.
Oh,
I was going to say
wow.
most certainly Electude.
Electude.
Oh,
you
just
were
Electude.
but I thought you were
Alright.
talking about the best part.
Yeah, sorry, my mistake. My
Can
mistake.
I sound more sarcastic? with
We
that?
may want to get sponsored by Electude at some point. So
Oh,
guys,
sorry.
no,
You
I'm
gotta-
kidding.
you gotta
guys-
scrub
Can
that.
we,
Be
can we
real,
just
be
can
real.
we can
I
we
have
cut
an
that out,
Electude
please?
tattoo on my
Okay,
back.
honestly, I'll say this about Electude.
Okay.
Okay,
You are the
level
god of
2,
Electude.
worst thing ever.
Okay.
It's cruel and
It
unusual.
was brutal.
Why?
Okay, so
I
here's
know
the thing.
why. Mr. Peart.
He did hammer a
88
lot of.
Electude
Sorry,
Yeah,
I
modules
mean,
or something
God,
like
God
that.
bless Mr. Peart, but there were too many.
There were too many
modules.
And I think maybe they updated. Sorry to cut you off, but I feel like maybe they did like an update on it because it used to be like if you were 1 pixel off of the answer, or we use this example a lot. There was one for engine where we have to torque a cylinder head. And it was like a 90-degree torque, and you had to do like whatever 10 bolts, whatever it was. And if on one of them you went 91 degrees, you had to do the whole thing over again.
Yeah.
And it was just like you're ripping out your hair. You're
Right.
so frustrated.
Yeah.
But this year was a lot better. I think they updated
Yeah,
it.
like
and the
there's
simulators.
some
were
of those
good.
modules are like they're not all made equal. Like
No.
some are better. I remember there's this one in electrical where they tell you to use an ohm meter on an airbag inflator, and it deploys the airbag, and then it says never do this. And I was like, oh, that was actually kind of clever. I like that.
Yeah.
But I hate the ones where it's like you're battling against the Electude program in order to actually complete the Electude, and then it's for marks, and there's so many of them. And so you kind of really actually do miss out on the learning opportunity because you're so frustrated with, well, I'm not clicking in the right spot, or I went to tenths instead of hundredths on my
or I
answer.
didn't use the proper decimal
The
points. Like
units,
sometimes
too.
you want
Yeah.
2 decimal places and you put 1 or whatever, and it's like, oh, this is for marks, so you get frustrated.
Yeah.
I think the way Mr. Roosh did it, which was not grading the modules but grading the quizzes, I thought was actually pretty clever.
Yeah.
Because you could just go feel as like comfortable as you wanted to do the modules, make mistakes, learn, and then the quizzes, which were honestly way easier than the modules and way shorter.
That's why I
Usually
don't
did
do it
pretty
that
good.
way.
You don't do it that
Because
way.
you can just do the quizzes and guess, and then say, "Can you reset this quiz?"
Oh,
and
yeah, he
you
wouldn't
know,
reset the quizzes.
well,
though.
that's fair.
Yeah.
So there's multiple ways to learn, and I think as a facilitator of the course, I think you have to pick and choose what's good and bad. So Peart, you can slap. I'm kidding.
Mr. Peart was awesome.
I wouldn't recommend
I like
Yeah,
this course.
no,
he's a big fan.
I appreciated Mr. Peart. Mr. Peart,
Don't mess with it.
Joey and I had him in level 2,
Mm-hmm.
and I found that like a lot of the things that I was frustrated about or didn't understand in his course made sense in level 3. So
Yeah.
so it's one of those things where
Oh, that's cool.
Maybe we're
It's funny. I talked to him actually after one of our exams. I ran into him and we were talking about that. He was teaching a level 2 lab.
Yeah.
And I was just saying like using these tools, doing these things. And he was like saying how he gets like the short end of the stick basically. Because
Yeah.
he's got to teach all the theory and doesn't get any of the fun parts.
Yeah.
And then we
Right.
get to do the diagnosis and whatever.
And all those sensors make sense at that
Makes
point.
sense.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And because he kind of like introduces the topic.
Yeah.
And then by level 3, we can actually start to learn it because, we have already heard of this. Like, I've heard of a scope, your time scale, your voltage scale, and then like your trigger. It's like, I've heard the word trigger before, but I didn't know what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Careful with that. We don't want to get
Careful.
censored.
Yeah. Now we're definitely not presented by Centennial College
or Electude.
or Electude for that matter.
I will say Electude can be very valuable, especially like I think both you guys have a high intelligence level, so you can capture a lot of things. Whereas some people struggle with certain, and whether it's just something they don't capture, and then they do Electude, see the visual, and it's like, oh, I get it now.
Right.
So there's a lot of good for that Electude,
Yeah, the way
function.
I use Electude is there is a supplement. It's totally ungraded. But then when students are struggling with a certain concept, there are some Electude modules that are just very good.
Right.
So I've just put a few Electude modules in that work hand in hand with my course SSB. And then if they're like, I really don't understand this, sometimes I'll just pull up the Electude module in front of the class.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we'll go through it together and watch
Yeah,
it
sure.
operate. But it's just another way to interact with the content, in my opinion. And there's some things that just they work really well on the Electude
Yeah, some
modules.
things are good, some things aren't.
Yeah.
And when you say they're ungraded in your experience, like are students just not doing them then? Because like usually when something's not graded, it's just like
most of the students don't do it, and I don't force them to do it because I more so rely on the chapter readings or the time we spend in lab together to focus on my content. So I really just use it as a supplementary for those that are having trouble or difficulty wrapping their heads around a concept.
Different way to look at something.
And I find a lot of, SSB, especially in level 1, it's like identify. In level 2, I really like the Electude because you can see the internals of the power steering system, watch pressure changes as you turn a steering wheel, which I think is really neat. And you're seeing these internal components move where it's hard, you can't see it on a car. It's all internal, right? So if you can't wrap your head around the lesson, you can open the Electude and you get this 3D view of it moving and operating. And that's what I like it for. And then level 3, it's more diagnostic based. I try to do that on car as much as possible.
Yeah. I will say the simulators were really good for...
I had students from when I've done level 3 fuels who wanted to rip their hair out because of the simulators. So what I would do with the simulators is I would assign it, and then the following week we'd take it up together as a class.
Okay, fair.
Because
I think that we didn't do that, and I think that would be more helpful because I found with those simulators, like I was getting stuck and very frustrated.
Yeah,
and I just would have appreciated like having been able to go through like with my instructor, like okay, this is
a process.
Yeah, like this is our diagnostic process. This is how we're gonna like go through this. Because I found like I wasn't sure, am I just not using the program correctly, or is there some sort of diagnostic process I'm just totally not understanding? And so that was one thing where I was a little confused on that. And
I feel like I might have the answer why they don't do that though. Just time
for sure.
Like that's I think a big problem with.
And to be fair, when I did take up the Electude modules, that was totally COVID. We didn't have any labs.
Yeah.
So the Electude was our lab.
Yeah,
and then me in a Zoom meeting with a scan tool hooked up to my car and running a lab that way. So that's
my favorite course I ever taught was in 2020 with Nick.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Hi Nick.
There we go. It was simulator based. It was advanced electrical, so I would just do everything based off the simulator, and it was awesome because everybody had to do it, and I could go in and watch them all.
Right.
So like I found a lot of weak students couldn't even hook up a meter properly, and I was like, okay, we're doing this now. You share your screen. Let's do it.
Right.
And we'd all work through it together, and I think it worked really well that way. If you utilize it that way. So I think it's not the only thing we can use, but it is a real fun help. Yeah. So Electude has its place.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I think it's just like how you use it, and even like the specific, like with the modules, like which modules you select.
For sure.
Yeah. Like some of them are brutal.
Some of them are just rough. And then there's a lot of redundancy, I find.
Yes.
So there's like...
You get like the specialist one versus the regular one. You have to do like it
Which
twice.
is the same thing. It's
just
just added
first
a few more slides.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're just like, why couldn't I just done one of these?
Yeah. So I think it's one of those things at the end of the day where it's like, it can just be about how you implement the tool.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah. It's well said.
Yeah.
Look at that.
All right. Well, if Electude was your worst thing about the college.
No, mine's still 401 traffic.
Oh, yes. That wins.
Yeah.
What was the most impactful thing or your favorite thing to learn over all 3 semesters? Like it could be anything. Could be, barbecuing in the parking lot or something.
Yeah.
Like what was the most impactful thing you guys felt from school?
I think met a couple good friends here, which is awesome, which I think I'll take throughout life, which is great. Sense of community. And I think we were kind of chatting, or was I talking with someone else outside about like, you can be really smart, you can know a lot, but it really is the network of people who surround you, right? You can't know everything about all the cards, right? So you have friends, you have coworkers, you have people you can call and ask. And I think it makes the community just better.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
So I think that's super important. The people were great. Also, can't believe I'm going to say this, but like electrical level 3, as much as that was a good course.
Wow. Okay.
That was a tough course, and it was too short.
Yeah.
And it was just too much information for 8 weeks, but like some really good information in there, which is pretty cool. Yeah. What about you?
It's kind of hard to like narrow it down to just one thing. Because for me, for the most part, I would say, like I enjoyed like the lecture classes when there was like good discussion. I found like that's when I learned the most. Like anybody can look at a slideshow, anybody can read a textbook, and you might understand it better or worse. But I found what was like really powerful that I wouldn't just be able to do on my own is just those in-class discussions. When like I know Mr. D'Amico was really big about this. He would like ask questions and he would get us to like start thinking about it.
No PowerPoints.
No PowerPoints.
Just talk.
Just straight talk. And like I found that was really cool. And that's honestly where I did learn the most, or like I was able to take the things I understood and knew and begin to like apply them like in my mind and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that's not something that I'm going to get from reading a textbook. It's not something I'm going to get from
a YouTube video. It's
not something I'm even going to get from an online class. Like I did level 1 mostly online, and it was just like I did learn things, but it wasn't fun and engaging in the same way that like being in that class environment and having that discussion is. And so I'd say like if I look at like, what was kind of the best part about my time in school at Centennial, I'd say, it's just being in that classroom environment and having those discussions and then being able to like, learn about that stuff.
I'm shocked by both those answers.
Okay.
Yeah. Like usually it's like, I love scopes with Neil or with Roosh, that kind of thing. Or, that, and both of it is more like community based. Yeah. So coming out of COVID and those two answers really like show how much the in class and the being around people is so important.
That was such an asset versus, and that's what you lose with, like you said, with your online learning, right? You don't get that community. And I tried to tell my students the same is you do want to network while you're here, make friends. And there's guys I went to college with who I'm still in contact with and have shops and we talk to each other
and a lot
all
of
the
them
time.
teach here. Yeah.
Some of them teach here. Yeah.
It's not really a quantifiable metric, just like community and friendship and relationships with people. That's what life's all about.
100%.
Yeah. Let's get deep.
Let's go.
No, relationships are your most valuable asset, in my opinion.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
The people you surround yourself with. I mean, that's probably what makes a good life.
Yeah.
Are we still talking cars?
I'm not sure where we're this is a new podcast.
Therapy time.
Talking about our feelings.
SOT.
This is a safe circle, gentlemen.
That's great. Okay, so let's chat a bit about you guys because you guys are kind of on two different spots of where you are. You're working in a shop, Matthew.
Correct, yeah.
And Joey, you're kind of on a different scale with that.
Yeah.
So let's start with Joey and ask him what do you do, and then we'll get to Matthew and see what you do.
Wow.
So where do you work? What do you do there? And kind of what does that look like?
So my brother and I run a shop called Vulcan Motorworks. It's in Mississauga, kind of West Mississauga.
Yeah. Say that
you can
really
get
nice
specific.
and clear.
Yeah.
Nice and clear.
You can get more specific.
No,
at
where's
the
your shop?
Vulcan Motorworks on all social media.
There you go, at Vulcan Motorworks.
Give
Perfect.
it a follow. We work on a lot of what I like to think is cool cars. I mean, that's subjective, but it's a lot of older BMWs, which can be kind of frustrating in themselves, but it's what I was kind of raised on, what I kind of like, what I drive myself. The decision to open up a shop ourselves was a big one. It was tough. Something that we've always wanted to do, though. And I like it. It's not without its challenges, though, but it definitely makes me feel like I take these kinds of things, school, a lot more serious.
Mm-hmm.
It really is a career. It's my life. It's my, my job, everything, right? So, yeah.
Cool. And Matthew, what do you do? Where are you into?
I work at a small shop. I change oil for a living.
Okay.
That's a joke.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Edit in the laugh track.
Yeah.
It works at Tesla.
Get this
Changing oil.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, I work at a small shop and, we do everything, but for the majority, what we're doing is we're doing commercial vehicles, vans and trucks.
Okay.
And so I am 310S by trade, I guess, but we do a lot of stuff that gets really near to the 310T. And so it's kind of evident just from like class discussion and whatnot that like, like a lot of people or like a teacher will say like, oh, most of you won't really see this like on
Like
cars,
Kingpin.
and it's like, oh, that's like
Yeah.
half of what
Yeah.
we work on.
And where I'm just like lost. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
the
Joey has
truck?
no
What?
idea what's going on.
Yeah.
hammer go what on this truck? I don't know.
Yes. So yeah, and I like having that sort of diverse experience, and I think like especially as an apprentice learning, like that's been very valuable. I started off at a dealer. It was at a Toyota dealer, and I thought that was great for the first year. You're changing oil, you're doing tires. I was also doing accessory install and even trim work as well. But it didn't really extend too far beyond that.
Mhm.
And so for the first year, it's like, when you don't know the difference between your left foot and your right foot, like it's good. But then I remember there's a technician there that said, oh yeah, if you want to learn, you got to go to a small shop, and that's where you're going to learn, because that's when you're going to get all the different
Thrown in the deep end there
experience.
for
Yeah.
sure.
And as a matter of fact, he also had truck experience at the small shop. So I thought it was kind of funny that in some ways I followed in his footsteps.
That's cool.
And ended up at a small shop where I'm getting truck experience. But it's been really good, because then when I do come to class and we're talking about different things, it's like, okay, I've seen this, I've worked on this, and that kind of stuff. And so I just feel like I feel really bad for those individuals who might be working in like a larger machine that, nope, you're tires and oil, that's your job.
Right.
Maybe brakes if a technician feels like giving you his work. But like, I just feel like there's no way to learn.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm grateful to be in the spot I am and have the opportunities I have. Yeah.
That's
I
great.
feel like that might speak to an issue we kind of touched upon, which is like coming back to Electude. Like, yeah, some people might have only done oil changes all their entire life. They might be in level 3 only doing oil changes. And like you said, they don't know how to hook up a scope. They don't know how to do anything, and they don't get the opportunity to. Small shop, you're forced to, right? You have to, because you just got to get it done. So probably for those kinds of people who just are working in that machine, like you said, or just doing the one thing.
The not so well oiled machine at times.
Yeah,
I think
pretty
there's
cool.
another factor too, and it's what you want out of your career.
Yeah.
There are apprentices I've spoken to who are like, well, I just really want to do brakes and I just want to do tires and this kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
if it makes you happy.
And yeah, I mean, as I think all of us sitting here are sort of more like, we want to diagnose stuff. We want to get our hands dirty and do like
wanna do cool
technician work.
things.
I don't want
Yeah,
to get my hands
exactly.
dirty anymore.
No, so not
I'll
anymore.
diagnose stuff,
but there was a point where you wanted
Yeah,
to do
for
it,
sure,
right?
for
So,
sure.
and you were like, we want that challenge, right? So I think there is a different sort of position. And this is something I think D'Amico said. He might have even mentioned it on one of the other podcasts, I think with Lopes, where he's like, there should be 2 categories, the guys that are just the mechanics and then the technicians.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think he even said there should be 2 different license
I tend to
categories
agree
or
with
something.
that actually when I read that.
I agree as well.
I can see it. Yeah.
I kind of think of that when you say small shop and dealership. Like, I think of a small shop as the traditional mechanic. Like, I'm going to make this work,
Right.
And I worked at small shops and learned a lot, and you learn a lot of tricks and things to make it work. Where at a dealership it wouldn't fly so much.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to the dealership and you're more the technician, where it's like the car cannot be fixed anywhere else. Fix it.
Deal with it. Right?
And that's what I ended up loving. So I loved learning about the mechanical side of things, but then I also love the fact that nobody else can fix this. I'm going to do it.
And I think this speaks to where you are as well in terms of like the kind of shop, because there are private shops. I've worked in private shops and with shops where, everything complicated, they go kick it to the dealer. Let the dealer do the diag and then we'll replace the part. That's what
Right.
happens, right? And then there's private shops that do,
Of course. Yeah.
really, get in there and fix everything. And I have students from those kinds of shops too.
Right.
And those are always the students who are like
Yeah,
top of the class, and you're like, they're killing it. So kind of like you guys, right? So
Yeah.
like very comfortable. Like,
Appreciate the
I am using the
compliments.
scope. I'm assuming I haven't taught you guys.
Yeah. You're making
So,
a lot of assumptions here, man. Bottom of the barrel.
And then
We all know
just-
what it means to assume.
Yeah.
and just like you said, then there's the dealership environment where you're a cog and you're just doing oil changes and stuff. And then there's the dealership environment where they're like, all right, kid, this car's got a bus problem. Go figure it
nuts,
out.
yeah.
Right. So it is, there's like not that consistency.
It depends on your manager a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
It depends on the ownership and the manager and how that's run. And I can definitely.
And then I think on you as well and what you
Yeah,
push
I
for.
was just thinking that.
Yeah.
Do you think it has something to do with ambition? If you're just not speaking up for yourself and you're just doing brakes and oil changes, and you're not like,
Or on
'Cause-
your phone not caring.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
I mean, if
right
it's
now,
just a
too.
paycheck to you, I mean, power to you, right?
Mhm.
That's your business. But like if you're there asking for these more complicated jobs, I don't know. Maybe they won't, but maybe they would.
And then sometimes, and I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we had another student on as well, Madison.
Yeah.
Madison, and I think what we heard in that conversation was when you get all that shop cleanup and oil changes, if you're pushing, you get it all done, and then there's nothing left, and now you're working with the technician, right? So it's like if you're hungry for it, you push,
you can get there.
And if they're not giving you those opportunities, you go to another shop where you do get the opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Or you open your own shop, something right?
Yeah, which is, I mean, I had because I started at a small shop too, where, kind of the same thing since I was really young, just working there. And
5.
5, before I was born. No, I was a teenager and I was working there and very much just right in the deep end, hands-on, kind of learning as much as I could. So it wasn't that I didn't want to keep doing that. It's just wanted to do something for my own. It was always kind of in my head. So I was very much happy where I was at too, but also just wanted to create something for myself, run it my own way, have my own legacy, do what I want. And it doesn't come without its stresses.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Stressful.
That kind of leads us into something that you want to talk about, because we're in school and we're talking about the shop, and you brought up kind of like the parallels or the lack of parallels between the two.
Yeah.
What was that you wanted to chat about?
I find that it's a little bit more obvious because I did my first level as like a night school situation. Okay. Yeah, so that's a little different because you're still in the shop every day. But I find especially like when you do a block, you come to school and every day you're told, okay, like this is how we do this is how we do that. Remember, in this situation, always make sure you do this a certain way because it's either the safe thing to do or the legal thing to do or the technically correct thing to do.
But sometimes you just want to put a compression fitting in a brake line, don't you?
No, me never.
No, don't do that one.
Leaking brake lines? I'm on lunch, actually. I don't want to touch that. But no, I find that there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect between like how we're being told, okay, this is how you're going to do your job in the school. And then when you get on the job and you're working and, your employer's expectations of you, there's a little bit of a disconnect there. And I've been wondering over the past couple of years, like, is this something that is sort of like something we all know, but we're not admitting openly? Or is it there is a way to like reconcile those two differences?
Interesting.
And I think there's different factors at play that like kind of contribute to the problem as I'm describing it. But it's definitely something where like, an example that comes to mind is, who in the class has performed a pad slap?
Right.
Some people put up their hands. We never do pad slaps because, the brake order has the wrong coefficient of friction. So you're not going to get proper braking performance.
But you think every student probably should have raised their hand or something like that?
Well, it's not just that, but then I'm thinking to myself, like, it's like, okay, like, so then when I go back to the shop and it's like, hey, truck needs brakes, pads, rotors. Oh, we don't want to, customer's not going to go for rotor. It's like, do I just go, okay, sure, whatever, and pad slap? Or do I need to advocate more for, no, like we should, do the technically correct thing, and we should talk to the customer and whatever. But then also it's one of those things where like,
how much fight do you want to put up against it?
And then also like what kind of position am I in to like make those decisions? Because I think like also shop structure has a lot to do with it, because I talked to some of my colleagues that work in dealerships and they tend to have a lot of independence. Where it's like, here's your job, you do it.
Figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out.
So, I mean, I guess one thing I'd mention is like with that specific example, rather, of that brakes, it's like, well, if I'm not going to change the rotor, can I cut the rotor? Right? That's probably what I'd be doing. And I'd say the right thing to do is now measure your rotor, see if you can cut it. But if that rotor is below minimum thickness, then there's no way I'm going to ever say, put a set of pads and don't change the rotor for below minimum thickness, right?
Yeah.
So at the private shop, we would cut rotors. I don't know if that's something you guys are doing as well, but very often we'd machine the rotors, and that's how we were saving the customer money and making the job, more viable or affordable for the customer. And if you're not going to give the customer that option, I wouldn't really just throw a set of pads on that vehicle. Yeah. And there is, again, sometimes when I get into this stuff, and I know Ian, you teach level 2 law as well.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. Now I'm teaching that as well with my level 2 apprentices. I just teach that section, and sometimes they say, well, yeah, but then what if my boss tells me to do this? I'm like, at the end of the day, you want to do something that's safe and secure, and you're not going to get anybody hurt, right?
Yeah.
And if you feel like you're at a shop where you're forced to compromise your integrity, that doesn't feel good in the long term. You may want to go somewhere else, right? Or you could have these conversations with your boss. And with the level 1s, I know when you're starting out, you don't have a lot of say in what happens in your shop.
Yeah.
But as you progress and you become a better technician and you're fixing cars, then all of a sudden your stock goes up and people will listen to what you have to say. I remember when I was an apprentice, my service manager said, you don't talk to customers.
Right.
Don't talk to customers, right? Now it's like, don't let the advisor talk to the customer. You just talk to the customer, right? And then when they want to know how much money, I'm like, okay, now you talk to the advisor, right? So it's one of those things where you almost have to build up your reputation to a degree. But yeah, it's like a balance. It depends. It's so yeah.
I think you kind of briefly mentioned it, just like informing the customers, because I feel like in my experience, so long as you have a good relationship and there's some trust there, right? There has to be a level of trust. If you're informing them that, hey, this is the right way to do it, this is what's safest. There are some people that are just really cheap and don't care about safety, but for the most part, people want to be safe, right? And this is not to upsell or anything like that, but this is where that trust comes in, right? Like if they trust you and that you know what you're saying and what you're talking about, and this is what's best for you, your family, the people on the road, your car, I feel like most people will tend to put that over money. But then, it's a tough distinction to make if you're just the guy working and the boss is the one talking to the customers, right? It's tough. We're getting into the real nitty gritty here, which is the law, which I really like that course. I remember a lot of people didn't show and a lot of people wouldn't come. And I was staying after hours, talking to Miss Bain about, I would bring a list of questions. I'm like, okay, this, and that. What would you do? Matt, you're deep in thought.
He's like, I don't
perplexed
know.
you. When it comes to the law, it's just right over the head. No. And I think on the point of customers, I think you're right that most people are concerned with safety. Most people have that natural instinct for self-preservation at the very least. So when you say, hey, this might hurt you, the majority of the time somebody's like, okay, I'll put some serious thought into that. But another thing is it really seems that simply just the cost of car ownership is just so ridiculously high, and a lot higher than most of us really having a proper appreciation for. And then especially we kind of see it now in our sort of post-COVID inflation of used car prices, new car prices, plus having to wait forever to get them, as well as the kind of introduction of hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles more as okay, this is the way things are going to be now. The costs are absolutely incredible to own a car. And so, I think for a lot of people, it's everybody's feeling that financial pressure. And so if they can cut costs, they're going to try to cut costs. And in some cases, that's their car. Well, does it still drive? Can I still get from point A to point B? Right. Does it stop? Well, it stops good enough. So even though the proper correct way, is to, pads rotors, let's say, it's well, if I just get a pad slap, isn't that cheaper? And it'll work fine enough. And I just think it's that's also just a consequence of just sort of the economics of our industry is it actually is incredibly expensive. We all understand it as technicians from the insane bills we have to pay for all of our tools.
Yeah,
which is ridiculous, by the way. Sorry.
That's true. And this segment called ranting about
And in this segment called complaining about money.
Sponsored you're by BMW guy, so you know all the special triple squares and all sorts of extra tools,
a lot more like
right?
Volkswagen, Audi, but there's a lot of specialty tools you need.
I'd say that part of where that conversation I have with my students sometimes, because they bring that up as well. And I think we even just today mentioned how the cost of certain bills has significantly skyrocketed. Mm-hmm. Something like a brake job used to be something that was much more affordable and easier to do. It's important as technicians now when we diagnose something, we're diagnosing it accurately because of that cost factor.
Right.
We look at something like I saw a news article on this. It was a Mercedes headlamp assembly with something like $7,000.
Oh yeah,
and I might be lowballing it there, but like
I think some of them, like the laser ones, are about $10,000.
So if you misdiagnose something like that, woof, right? Getting down into now actually finding the part that needs to be replaced. Right. With my level 3s, when we talk about something like wheel speed sensors, some of them say, "Well, just put a sensor in it." And they're like, sensors like $16. Yeah, and
parts changers.
Oh man!
Then I gave him the example of a wheel speed sensor for a Dodge Viper. It was like an 08 or something, and it was something like $600.
Yeah.
So you're not going to just put a sensor in it, right? So you have to know, and that's why as technicians we have to do our job better.
Yeah, there's a tough balance there though, because are you getting time and financial compensation for diagnostic? And I think a lot of people don't want to pay it. A lot of people don't want to go that route. And maybe if 9 out of the time, 10 times it works, you're making more money that way. It's a business at the end of the day, man.
Yeah. And there's a big misconception on the customer side where you just plug in that thing into the vehicle and it tells you what's wrong.
Yeah. Also, that thing costs $10,000. That thing, you know?
Yeah. Plus your $2,000 per year subscription. Oh, and then after 5 years, you need to buy a new one.
Yeah. Oh, and these all have to be calibrated every year. And this has to be that.
And then, by the way, it doesn't actually perform all the bidirectional controls that you would require it to perform.
By the way, you need a dealer tool for this.
Yeah. And then security gateway.
This is hilarious because I'm just thinking back to the level 2 chat we had with the students, and it was like just the elevation from them, like that, and they were awesome.
Oh, you mean this is rock bottom?
Yeah, no,
it does not get lower.
No, it doesn't get lower.
Like I said, I just change oil for a living.
What is oil? Level 3 engines.
Level 3 engines.
Oh man.
They where they were was just like in the meat of like trying to learn, and you guys are at this next level where it's like talking about purchasing tools and all this. And they were in the same thing as well, but like just the elevation from them to level 3.
Cool.
And something that kind of popped in my head was like, what, as you guys are like the pinnacle now, level 3, you guys are
we're on the top of the big dog.
Big guys.
This is the pinnacle.
Big guys.
Oh man.
No. Big guys in the school
more
now.
Depressing
Like,
statement has never been said.
You're the grade
That was like
8s.
the worst thing you could have said.
I'll cut it
Matt,
out
you
then.
just peaked. No, we're kidding.
It's all downhill.
It's all downhill. That's it.
I'm like, if this is the peak
of your automotive education, I'll say, is what I mean. What would you recommend to like a level 1 or a level 2 student? What would you say to benefit them as they're traveling through this journey?
I hear HVAC's pretty good, actually.
I hear any other industry. No,
electricians, plumbers.
Yeah, I'd be a plumber.
It pays pretty good. You don't need to buy as many tools.
Yeah. It is an expensive trade to get into that you maybe don't make as much money as other trades. So like obviously that's a joke, but it's kind of true. But to your more serious question, if I could give somebody some advice, is probably spend a lot more time on electrical.
A lot more time on electrical.
Yeah. Some of the stuff electrical should be level 1, level 3. We should be better than we are. We should be doing some of the level 3 stuff in level 2, level 3. We should, like I said, there's no time. We should be doing some more serious stuff. So I think the thing is, electrical is like this scary subject. It's the one that everybody struggles at most. It has maybe the most like calculations and math, which maybe the people coming here weren't excelling in those fields, so that's why they were doing this. So I understand that could be an obstacle, but I think that's the way the world's going, man. You got everything the cards are computers, and you have to be almost like as smart as a computer engineer or electrical engineer to understand some of these systems on these cars.
Okay, I'm going to go a little sideways with something you said earlier, and I know it was a bit of a joke, but when you said, be an electrician, you'll make more money, or go into HVAC, knowing that you may make money or more money in other trades, why are you in this trade?
Because we all hate ourselves.
Oh
no.
Have you ever heard of the sunken cost fallacy?
Oh no, not the sunken cost fallacy. Honestly, because for me, I'll speak for myself, because I love it. I like it. It was really very much a hobby. I like to work on them. I like to drive them. It's fun. Mm-hmm. They say maybe don't make your hobbies your career, but we did it and we're here. And I like it. I'm happy with what I do.
They also say if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life, right?
I've worked a lot.
They're lying. Those are all rich people saying that.
I'm working every day.
Yeah. So that's why I do it for sure. And I think it's healthy and important to vent and kind of be frustrated and kind of talk to your peers about all the negative things, but it is a great trade. I mean, like, you're really engaged. You have problems that you can fix your mind. I worked an office job I went to uni. So throughout uni, I was working in an office job that was kind of flexible with my hours. And I think it was like, I had to do like 24 hours a week or something like that. And they were able to split them up Saturday, Sunday. So I'd just work weekends, 12 hours. And it was brutal. Just, you had your screen in front of you all day for 10, 12 hours. And like, that really was reaffirming for me. Like, oh, I cannot do this with my life. Mm-hmm. This is not this doesn't make me happy. I'm in the shop, 10, 12 hours went by like that. And so I think it really is a personal thing. And that might be true to all trades. I don't know. This is just the one that I went into, but what do you think, Matt?
That's good.
The gears are turning.
Yeah, because like, I don't exactly know, because there's definitely things I like about the trade, and then there's definitely things I don't like about the trade. It's one of those things where, like, I definitely do enjoy this trade and all the different sort of like things you have to apply together.
You have to know a lot of stuff.
You have to know a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And that's something I'm very good at. It's being a know-it-all.
Oh.
Wow.
How conceited are we?
Yeah. You said it, not me.
Yeah,
you have to know a lot of different aspects.
Yeah, and so like definitely I find like being in a position where just being able to understand and interpret lots of information in order to come to the correct answers somewhere where it's like, okay, that's somewhere where I'm going to excel. And then as well, like in this trade, you do get the opportunity to like help other people work through problems, like particularly in the small shop environment, because
that's everywhere.
Yeah, like, so it's like somebody's like, oh, hey, what do you think of this? And then like it gives you the opportunity to like apply that knowledge. And I always really enjoyed doing that.
Do you find that gives you confidence? Because I find that gives me confidence. You said you have to be good at a lot of different things to come to the right conclusion. I personally feel like I could fix anything. Give me any problem in the house, any whatever. I'm just like, oh, I can, quote unquote, reverse engineer that. I can figure it out. I can make it work. I can make a piece that will fit there.
My wife hates that fact about me.
Because he keeps repairing his toasters and stuff like that.
That's what I mean.
He's got a toaster from 1973.
Come on.
They don't make it like that
Just need a
anymore.
new fridge. I'm like, I'm going to try this. We just need a new fridge. I'm going to try
you
this.
teach AC, right? So I mean, you got to know how the fridge is working there for sure. I don't know. I find it gives me confidence. I like that. I think
you have to have confidence also with this trade, because if you don't have confidence, you're never going to call that part. Like that $7,000 light. If you don't have confidence to go say, I know exactly what's wrong. I've traced it right to here. And without that confidence, you're not going to be that good tech. So you have to have that almost in this trade. And it builds that at times as you get better and you figure out those problems, or you screw something up and
make
learn
mistakes,
from that.
learn
Like
from that.
you have to.
Oh, it didn't need it 7,000. It was the views.
But you won't do it a second time.
Now I'm telling you that story is going to be fantastic.
Yeah. How do you explain that?
At least you sold the
believe me,
expensive part.
I've explained that a few
Spin
times in
some
my
stories.
career.
We're all mechanics and story writers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that competency builds your confidence, right?
Yeah.
And then it goes hand in hand and makes you more competent.
Yeah.
And I think when I do have students who say, well, why don't I be an electrician? And I say, why don't you? Well, it's passion.
Yeah.
You have to want to do this. Like you guys said, you get beat up doing this job, but you have to want to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know many plumbers, but I've never See, I don't
I wanna
think
be
they
a
have the
plumber.
same kind of passion
I wanna be a
about their
plumber.
jobs that we
I
do.
do.
No.
Not
'Cause
that I've
plumbing
ever seen.
It's like I feel like maybe plumbing's not a hobby. Again, I don't know much about plumbing, but there's not really like plumbing meets. Like I know there's like car meetups and things like that where people are like, yeah, they have this passion. They're like proud to show off what they've worked on and they've created.
Have
and
you
they've spent
seen
so much
some of those bathrooms?
No.
Think about a high-end
What's a
bathroom. Think about a high-end bathroom and the plumbing that goes involved with that.
I go to Centennial. I've never seen one.
Oh, shots fired.
Especially the Warden building.
Damn.
Have you ever used one of those like air dryers and it actually dried your hands? Has it ever
you might
happened?
as well just have some guy blow on your
How many
hands.
times has that toilet been leaking this year? I feel like every other day you go into the water.
You go into a pool of the bathroom.
Yeah, I forgot my rubber boots at home.
The
You
best
only go
part
in on
is
lab days when you have your boots.
there is one really good hand dryer. Do you know where it is?
Your pants. Get it the old.
In the fuels lab, in the far
Oh,
corner
that's
by
true.
that sink, hidden behind the door.
This
But
is
it's
all
like
gonna
a
be
Dyson.
blurred
and
out,
it's
right?
like
'Cause
you.
This is
It's
privileged
hidden in the
information.
weirdest
Intro.
spot.
It just goes to a long bleep. The best hand dryer is beep. No one can know.
Beep in your pants. Yes. Anyways.
Redacted.
Yeah.
You're gonna edit this to be all jumbled up.
Yes, probably.
Oh, man.
I love
That's
it.
funny. So, I'm out of here. I will probably never come back. So, thanks for letting me know my last day.
That's what I should do on the last day. By the way, just so
the way,
you
yeah.
guys know.
Yeah, the faculty washroom is great. Open to students.
No, it's not. Awesome. Well, I love the chats. I love the conversations. We have 2 questions for every guest. Every first-time guest, because we have questions for second-time guests too.
Yeah,
But
we got
the first-time guests. So the questions are, and I want you guys to think about this for a second.
Okay.
If you could have any car for a day,
Well, not just a car. Apparently, any
yes,
sort of
because I was what was
vehicular. You were like a
I? A fighter jet.
you were a fighter jet.
Yeah,
Or-
that's a
good answer.
Yeah, I was Top
Yeah.
Gun. Yeah, I wanted to be Top Gun.
Can I steal your answer?
So you can be anything you want, anything, no money, whatever you want to do, and you get the Matrix downloaded in, and you can fly it or drive
Okay,
it
so
instantly.
you have the skill
So you
set.
have the skill set.
Oh.
Yeah.
What would you like to
Oh.
operate?
And the second question
Okay.
would be, I'll let you think about it, and then we'll ask the car one first. The second question is, if you could be in anyone's shoes for one day, dead, alive, or fictional,
Okay.
yeah, you could be that. So
I like these questions.
let's start with the car question.
2 things come to mind for me right away. 3 things.
3.
I feel like I go to
My
like
goodness.
extremes. A bicycle,
bicycle,
a kayak,
kayak,
something just just to get out there. in
peaceful.
nature. Just
Okay, I
enjoy.
see.
Just
Yep.
Okay.
out on
Most
the
people
water.
are picking like this. What was yours? Like a $15 million fighter jet?
Yeah, well,
that they could
I
never
said
possibly
I did
afford?
say 3 things.
Yeah, 15
please,
minutes.
please let me finish. My last one is a space shuttle.
Oh,
Okay.
So there you go.
Okay.
We're going to the nature of the Earth and the nature of outer
The what
space.
is it? Jeff Bezos space shuttle?
Oh,
Or
I don't know. Like
one of
just to
those?
be in outer space. I think
Okay.
that would be.
What was the one that blew up on the tarmac?
Oh no! Yeah, that
the
one
Challenger?
specifically.
Yeah, I think it was a
the
Challenger.
one,
Yeah.
Or no, blew up on the No, the Challenger was a shuttle that blew up after it launched.
Oh
But yeah,
yeah.
everybody
But how
died.
cool would that be? Like, I would love to go to outer space.
I don't know if I would.
That would be so cool.
I don't know if I would.
But I'm
Okay, I have a
fascinated
question
by
though
that.
about the rules. So like,
Oh,
let's say
we're still on the
you
rules.
let's say you die as a result of
Oh, you
piloting whatever
respawn. vehicle
you're piloting.
yeah, I think respawn's all right.
Yeah,
You
you'll
respawn?
respawn. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like okay, so
That's why I'm going no
I
helmet.
really
on the
want to know what
bicycle.
you're gonna pick now.
Yeah,
that
so-
you're gonna die.
like
Especially because
I was
we said
thinking
you have the knowledge.
like the or like a rocket ship, like Apollo 11 sort of
Okay. Yeah,
situation.
man, that's cool.
Because it's like I get
Bragging
to find
rights?
out if they actually made it to the moon. You know what I
Was
mean?
it real?
I
Where
would
do
get
you
to
stand
find
on
out.
aliens?
It's like, but the thing is, I was thinking like, what if I can't make it back, kind of a thing. So that's why I asked
Yeah.
if I'm still allowed to be alive.
Yep.
Yeah.
After you have to die for the rest of the day.
Okay, then for a day.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you just wake up.
But
It's
you're on like
whoa.
Saturn time or something.
Okay,
So who
sure,
knows how
sure,
long?
sure,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah. So anyway, yeah, I think I don't know. Like it's either like the Apollo 11 like space
I
mission.
like it. Outer space. I'm with
Yeah,
you.
like well, because
You guys are big thinkers.
It's
I had this
interesting.
one,
honestly,
I had this
kayak
one
alone in a
teacher
lake.
in college,
That'll
and
be
he was convinced that
the Earth is flat.
that the
Oh,
moon
no.
landing was not
Oh,
something that
really?
occurred. Oh yeah. Yeah. So
So
I
just
get
for
to
that
find
one
out.
professor in college.
No,
this
seriously,
whole thing.
I get to find out, and there was a lot of people who kind of followed along with with that belief system. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, let's test it empirically.
I like this.
And this is the only way.
All right.
I'm more so
But I gotta
like
respond.
This is
it
the
would
way.
be cool to be in
Just
It's
the joy of looking
either
at
that
Yeah,
or
I think I'm a big
2002
like,
beige
guy.
Toyota
I want the
Corolla.
view.
A 2002 base Toyota Corolla.
Beige.
Oh, not
beige
beige.
Corolla.
Oh,
But base model, of course.
My level one's engine teacher, Mr. Lorette, I believe it was. People were like asking him, this was during COVID, they were asking him what his favorite car was. And he said a 93 Tercel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did
And I
he
thought-
say that on the podcast?
yeah,
Did he?
yeah,
He did.
yeah,
I
that's
thought it was
Tercel.
the funniest thing ever because everybody
Actually,
was like,
no, that's
I want
legit. That's
this and
respect,
this hyper car. And he's like, yeah, 93 Tercel. And I thought it was so funny. I don't know why. Humor's broken.
I
maybe.
think he said that on the podcast.
Oh, cool. I'll
Yeah,
have
he
to
had
listen
that
to
Tercel
one.
for a long time. Yeah.
Did he actually have one?
Oh yeah, he had the
okay, so
Tercel,
his
and then from
backstory.
there he went to an RT Charger.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Quite a difference.
The next
yeah.
step, clearly.
Yeah.
In gas. Yeah.
In gas,
for sure.
yeah.
I feel like this who you want to be is going to be way more difficult.
Well,
for
apparently
you.
you
Yeah.
both want to be like Neil Armstrong.
Oh yeah.
No, they can't do that. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
no,
Nick's
I
in
guess
that one
actually
right
that's
now.
true. Yeah.
Also, I
It's-
feel like do you think flying, as much as being in space is cool, do you think flying the shuttle is like cool, or are you just like
Can you
flicking
do
a
like?
switch?
Can you do a barrel roll?
flicking another switch and pressing a button?
That's what I mean.
Fighter jet is
my fighter
awesome,
jet.
honestly.
I can
Nat-
legit die in that thing. Like,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Whereas I'm just gonna be like, boom. Are we up yet?
yeah.
Well, I guess you're probably feeling a lot of G's going into
Feeling the
space and
pressure.
stuff. It's got to be pretty
Yeah.
intense.
Felt like there was an inside joke there.
It's only an inside joke if you took level 3 drivetrains.
Oh.
I've said too much.
Speaking of which, we need to have him on the podcast as well.
Yes, please.
Yes.
I would support that so much.
Dead, alive, or fictional? Was it?
Yes.
Oh man, this is gonna be so much harder. Can I go and say my past self? Is that?
Oh,
is that
I
an
think
option?
that was
I
said.
think that was selected.
Was it
already.
selected?
Somebody
I
said
think
that.
Somebody said
No
that.
way. Who was it? I haven't listened to it.
I feel like
Was
it
it
was
Pert?
Mr. Peart.
Yeah.
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 No, he wanted to be some
Mr. Pierce.
scientist.
No, he
or
said he
homie.
wanted to be himself, and then
Yeah,
he
that's what he said
switched it
first.
to the scientist.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
I
think that's
scientists
a
who
great answer,
discovered
Mr. Peart.
transistors.
Yeah, what a,
Oh, yeah?
how
Very
boring is
specific,
that?
yeah.
He went from like the best possible answer you can
But
have,
I would just be
unbiasedly.
curious. Like, you should have an
To
entire
those-
podcast of him explaining that answer.
I don't know if we'd want to listen.
How to fall asleep
He's
in
really
90
passionate
seconds.
about transistors.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. I think it'd be great to go back with what I know today and in many facets of my life and implement them. But to that point,
But you only get
I
one
can
day.
do
though.
that.
You're
Only
only
one
going
day.
back
It's
for
like
one day.
Invest in Amazon stock.
Yeah.
Invest in Apple.
Yeah.
Yeah, to that point, I think that mentality can be applied to my life right now. So it's kind of a win-win.
Okay.
I am my past self when I listen to this. Whenever you upload it,
Oh wow.
holy,
Inception.
we broke the internet, people.
Minds blown.
Number 1 on Spotify. That or like some fighter jet pilot, something cool.
Some fighter jet. Okay.
Astronaut.
Matthew.
Not bad. All right. So the tough thing here is I don't know my dates very well. But like there was this guy named Hannibal, not like the serial killer guy, but he was like
Yeah.
I feel like he was I think he was like a Carthaginian like general of some variety. And then so he went to Rome, but he went like up and through like
The mountains.
Spain and stuff and through the mountains,
Yeah.
but he did it on elephants.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Definitely I want to be Hannibal as he's riding into Rome on elephants.
So oddly specific, and
like
we
through
love
the
it.
through the
We're
Alps
here.
or whatever. Like, holy crap.
Does the
That'd be
elephant have
sick.
a CAN bus system, or are we diagnosing this elephant?
Maybe we could just hook a scope up.
His
to it.
bus system you want to
No,
go with.
no.
That
Whoa,
fuel
whoa.
system's a little rough. Yeah.
But I mean, like,
running
His trunk is just one Tesla.
just think about like how sick it would be to ride into
Careful
battle
with that exhaust.
on elephants. I think
Yeah.
that'd be pretty sweet.
See, out of I've known
Everybody's
you
out
for a
here
while
like,
now.
oh, I want to be myself. I want to be some scientist. I want to
Hey, yourself is all you can be, man. I've known you for a little while now, since last year, and I would have,
True,
I think, never expected that answer. That
Never expected
No.
Hannibal,
no,
like the serial
I
killer?
never expected you to say you want to ride through Rome on an elephant. Yeah,
Or riding into
that
battle.
that could be your vehicle too, if you could have one vehicle for the day. Elephant.
Ooh.
Nobody's
we were
picked an
always assuming
animal.
machine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
Nobody thought
A tiger.
A natural mission. A bio
Ride
Instantly just kills you.
a donkey up a steep mountain.
Yeah.
Super cool.
You picked a donkey, like you could have a.
You can just actually
sheep.
ride a
I'm a
donkey in
simple
real
man.
life.
Ram.
Yeah, why not do something?
Well, you can
actually
you can
do?
ride elephants too. Just
Yep.
I don't know if you
Just
can in
once.
this country.
Oh,
Probably they must
There's
have
just somewhere that you can ride elephants in Canada.
I don't know.
if you got
to
enough
have-
money, I feel like anything's possible.
They used to have the circus where you could do the elephant rides after
Oh.
or
Yeah.
before, but I
Okay.
haven't seen that in a long
I
time.
think I've seen weddings where people
yeah.
actually
in.
It's true.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
All right. Well,
We
I
can
guess-
make your dream come
I guess
true.
yeah. I guess
Yeah.
we know what
Well,
we're looking
I'd
into.
be
after.
having to like attack Rome though.
Oh, okay.
Run
that
over the
was-
mountains.
That was a crucial part of this, not just the
Yeah,
elephant.
no, it's the whole scene. The
Okay.
whole scene. I just
Wow.
thought would have been
Brings
pretty awesome.
LARPing to a whole new level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and then when you say it like that, it sounds like dirty and gross.
Can we edit this out?
F-16 it is.
I think I changed my answer.
Harley Davidson. Yeah. Something cool.
Yeah.
All right.
I love it. Well, this was probably the longest podcast to date, actually.
probably pretty close.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
I don't think I've ever actually spoken with somebody for less than an hour.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no,
That's
I
a
wouldn't-
deep thinker.
Yeah, I tend to talk a lot.
That's
Well-
why the Tim Hortons line is so slow.
I would really.
Do I want an
1 hour
old fashioned
order.
glaze or a Boston cream?
Just
For
think
the
about it. An
philosophical
elephant
aspect.
to Rome.
I go old fashioned glaze personally.
Awesome. Well, guys, I think we're gonna have to do this again with at
been
least
fun.
a few of you guys. I know you guys are gonna go write a big test, so all the best to your whole
Thank you.
class that's coming
Thank
up,
you,
and I hope you guys succeed and do well, pass that test, and then I would love to have you guys back after
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
fun.
that and see what that looks like, and if you have some insight on the future for up and coming people writing those tests. So yeah, all the best.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'd love to have that follow up. It was great to hear from you guys. Yeah.
It
Yeah,
was.
this has been a lot of fun. Actually, time has flown for sure. The elephant thing, I'm going to be thinking about.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Yeah.
Look it up because I gave you all the wrong information. So please,
Someone
please
fact
do your
check
own
this.
historical research. Yeah.
I love it.
And also look up kayak in a lake and just relax to that when you're.
true.
I
No,
mean,
what we should
traumatized
really
from
be
the
looking
elephant.
up is
exactly.
It's Vulcan Motorworks on Instagram and Vulcan Motorworks.
Spell that out.
VULCAN
Motor.
Motor Works.
Vulcan Motorworks
Yeah.
on all social media.
Yeah, mostly
And
Instagram.
Have you been doing YouTube videos?
We have been doing YouTube, yeah. So check us out on YouTube.
Okay.
We're trying to go into that world there
Awesome.
with some
to reach out
content.
to the older
Awesome.
folks.
Yeah, restoring some old classic BMWs. If you're into that, we're doing an E34 M5 right now. It's a pretty high mileage car, and we're bringing it back to life. So that's all up on YouTube and on Instagram. Check it out. I think it's good, very biasly, but let me
Yeah.
know what you think if you do check it out.
So if you have any questions, comments, or want to hear a topic, want to be on the podcast, whatever that looks like, please send us an email. And until next time.
This has been the Talking with SOT podcast with Harnek Gill and Ian Campbell. Thanks for listening.